Oh dear. Oh dearie, dearie me. That is not what I wanted to see. Hey everybody, welcome back to Star Technology. We're starting today's episode pretty much exactly where we left off the previous episode, but with a few minor hiccups. The first one is we have something going on with our Naquata line. I'm not entirely certain why we have 300,000 Naquadria sulfate, but here we are. We also have no sulfuric acid whatsoever. And for some reason, we have 3,689 crystal CPUs, despite the fact that I told it to stop making them at 512. So something has gone wrong indeed. And here's the first issue. These are set to raw crystal chips, not crystal CPUs. So let's just change that. Level emitter goes on and the laser graver is turned off. Problem 1, fixed. Problem 2 looks to be that everything is just too slow. And while, yes, we could upgrade the power inputs, we actually don't have the ZPM hatches yet. So for now, I think we're just going to turn off the input to the Naquata line. And speaking of ZPM energy hatches, I think that that's what we can work on today. Working back a little bit, the ZPM hatch is going to take LUV research. Research is going to take an LUV scanner, and it's also going to look like this. We're then going to need a HPCA and a data bank, and all of those components, almost all of them, take PCB coolant. So that's where we're going to start today, with PCB coolant. Right, PCB coolant is actually pretty simple. It's distilled water and polychlorinated biphenyl, which is biphenyl and chlorine, and biphenyl is benzene and oxygen, which is how we're going to do it. So let's get this set up. So we can import benzene and oxygen into a chemical reactor. So let's get a pump for import, and that will work as soon as we turn it on, and we need circuit 1 here. Next step is to chlorinate the biphenyl. So let's request some biphenyl with a conveyor set to import, and then a pump on the bottom set to import with chlorine as the request. And then finally, we need a pump for import on top of the mixer with distilled water and polychlorinated biphenyl. It's as simple as that. So everything is plugged in now. Let's watch it spring to life, shall we? So biphenyl is being made. That's good. Polychlorinated biphenyl is being made. That's good. And PCB coolant is being made. That is fantastic. And it's been exported and has been sent into a tank. We will lock it and confirm that we have made our PCB coolant. So I would call our PCB coolant quest successfully achieved. Now let's set some recipes for all of the computer components that we are going to need for the rest of this episode. I don't want to think about how irritating this is going to be to set up, but here we go. So the assembly line. Let's see what we can and can't make. So we don't need the data stick there, but we do need to be able to make the 2x ZPM superconductor. And these are 8 ZPM circuits actually. And then the data bank, I've already got that favorited. Okay, so the research station is done there. The HPCA, let's see what we need. So that's going to be 4 circuits. Need more of the superconductor. The optical pipe as well. We can remove that. Okay. And more of the ZPM superconductor. The data bank. That's going to require a computer casing, 8 IV circuits. Oop, those are LUV. Fine cobalt wire. Okay, we can actually make that. That's good. And then we need to be able to make computer casing. So computer casing is this nonsense. So we need to be able to make iridium frames as well. So iridium frames, just the classic frame box recipe, no struggle there. Done. We'll also set the recipe for fine cobalt wire here as well. And then the 2x uranium rhodium dinicodide wire. And it looks like we can't actually make the ingot yet as well, or the dust. So let's set this up. Knowing my luck, this is probably going to need a ZPM mixer, and it does. Absolutely brilliant. So we're also going to need a ZPM mixer. We'll just favorite that there. Actually, let's see. Okay, we just need to be able to make the Naquata rotor. Naquata alloy rotor, that is. My goodness. This is so much already. So now we need to be able to make optical piping, which is borosilicate glass, silver, and PTFE. That's fine, but we can't actually make borosilicate glass yet. So borosilicate glass, we need an ingot in a wire mill. That's fine. And how do we actually make the ingot? So boron and glass dust. That's fine. We have boron, glass dust. Let's just macerate a single piece of glass because we can make that very easily. Then we need advanced computer casings, which is all fine. Computer heat vents, which are going to require 16 copper plates as well. We need tiny stainless steel heat vents, the IV superconductor wire, so stainless steel pipes, IV wire, and let's worry about these HPCA components later. We still have a lot to get through here. So we also need the things to research, so we need to make an elite scanner, and let's just request that here. Always with the replans, I swear. And I think I'm going to put all these recipes in their pattern terminals off camera because I can tell you it's not going to be fun. Alrighty, so there is the ZPM mixer and there is the LUV scanner. So the scanner gets scanned for 2 minutes this time. So the mixer gets placed with its pattern, configured properly, and now we're getting somewhere. So we're definitely going to need some data banks. So here's the next thing to scan is the data access hatch. Let's give it a scan. Let's craft it up and queue it up for scanning. We'll also get a computer monitor, which again should be very fast to craft because the HPCA is going to require a computer monitor to be scanned once this is done. So there's the data stick for the research station. That'll be the data stick for the data bank, and this will be for the HPCA. So, only 60 seconds this time. That's wonderful. And so while all of those are scanning, let's actually take a look at how many computer casings we are going to need. So I've done the math, and thankfully, we don't actually need that many. And I say that without knowing how much this is really going to take. So in terms of advanced computing components, we need 75. So that actually does look quite expensive. Oh well, it's got to start sometime. In terms of regular computer casings, we're going to need 103 at minimum. And then the computer heat vents, we're going to need 92. Well, that is a fair amount of requesting sent into our blast furnaces. That's good. We have the next data stick, the data bank. And now we're finally scanning the HPCA. So 2 minutes later, we'll have everything we need. Except obviously the rest of the components. Well, the computer parts are done. Now what? Well, the next step is to request 3 data banks. And I'm honestly shocked that we can just request it. We are going to have to put in the data stick for the data bank. And let's just take out the ZPM conveyor module and put it in there. So that's going to allow our assembly line to function properly. And I'm thinking that we probably do want to start implementing some more of these assembly lines. I have space for 6, and I know I'm probably going to need 6 when it comes down to it in the end. And so like I did with the Fusion Reactor Mark 1, I think I can probably do that with the assembly line. So let's just remind ourselves exactly what the assembly line is going to need. So we're going to need 50 solid machine casings, 32 gratings, 17 casings, 34 laminated glass, 17 control casings, 16 input buses, 1 output hatch, the actual controller, energy hatches, which we'll worry about later, and the fluid input buses as well. So aside from the game just crashing when I opened up the anvil, how about we do this properly now? So we want our assembly line, our nice beautiful piece of paper, and we're going to do it as a processing pattern. So we're going to request the assembly line. So we can get the controller. We'll want the control casings, and like I said, we want 17. We'll get the assembly line casings. We need 17 of those as well. Then the grating, we need 32. Solid machine casings, we're going to need 50. 16 ULV input buses. 1 ULV output bus. We can't make that. Let's just put an MV output bus because I know we can make that. We need laminated glass. 34. We're going to use an EV non-upper input hatch just to start with. And what we can do is we can do 2 LUV 4 amp dynamo hatches. That'll get us ZPM tier energy at least. And I think for now, we will give them a data access hatch, but we'll modify this recipe for optical reception hatches shortly, once we have network switches and all of that nonsense. But for now, that is going to be our result. So now I'm just going to put it into the same chest that we use our fusion reactor, and let's request our assembly line. Only 25,000 bytes. That's actually not as much as I thought it was going to be. But here we go. And it actually looks like we've had a problem with our data orb crafting, so let's just request 2 more of those. Just to see, I think not enough nano processors have been put in. Well, there's the issue, is that this actually takes 2 circuits rather than just 1. So there's 2 circuits there. And now when we put that pattern in, and we request 2 data orbs, we will actually receive 2 data orbs, which can go in and finish off our data bank craft. And boy, am I excited for this second assembly line. So we've made our 3 data banks now, and we also have some new patterns that we need to put in providers. The first is going to be LUV input and output buses, and the rest are our optical data reception hatches, our optical data transmission hatches, computation data transmission and reception hatches. And now all of these are required to transmit things from items like the network switch. For instance, this taking in your computation data and sending it to one research station. And data reception and transmission are for your assembly line. So these hatches will allow your data bank to send data to the assembly line. And if you want to run one data bank into multiple assembly lines, you will need a network switch. Well, 2 things have happened since I last pressed that pause. A non-significant amount of time has passed. The assembly line number 2 has crafted, and suddenly a brand new area of the base has appeared. It was intentional, I promise. I definitely always remember to press the record button. So what we need to do now is we need to build a research station. No stress. Which also requires 2 things. We need the object holder, which is going to require a ZPM input bus, and a big ass assembly line recipe, except for the ZPM input bus, which we're going to need to make 2 of actually, which I suppose that's not too difficult. But there is another thing to add into our ME interface of continually growing recipes without enough storage for them. Yeah, alright, so let's build the data bank first. So we have 3 of them. Oh my... I cannot believe it took me that long to type that. Let's make some high power casings, and let's start to plan our first data bank. So the plan is to have 2 of these with a network switch in the middle to send 6 lines of data out to our assembly lines. We're also going to need an optic data reception hatch and an optical data transmission hatch. Let's get a few more data access hatches. And I think that's all we need for a data bank, unless I can see something in here that I don't have. No, looks all good. So now we wait for the components to craft. Alrighty, so briefly running through what the plan here is, we're going to have 4 HPCAs eventually fully upgraded. This is going to be the research station, and these are going to be 2 data banks, just in case we need more patterns. I don't know how many patterns we're actually going to need. So let's set up our first data bank, shall we? So the data bank is going to look something like this. The sides are going to be made of computer heat vents. The front is going to be made of high power casing, the controller, and probably the maintenance hatch. The back is going to be regular computer casings. And it's going to have our data transmission hatches and our storage. And then the inside is just regular computer casing, so no advanced components here whatsoever. Okay, and there we are. I finally have it working. So that took a little bit of experimentation, and the reason why is that the energy hatch needs to be on the high power casings. And I am a fool. I saw these and thought that those were energy hatches, but nope. The energy hatch needs to be on the high power casing. Don't make my mistake. So what we need to do here is we need to now run an optical pipe, and we will run this into a network switch eventually. But what we're going to do is we're just going to run it through the space where the optical network switch is going to sit. Okay, there we go. So now this is connected. This is going to run through the space of the network switch, which will have 2 inputs and 6 outputs, 3 on each side. And what I want to do is I want to run these above the power line. And the first one is going to be the one that we need the most right now. And that's ready to go. And then we're going to run these up all together. Oh my word. These pipes are so annoying to place. So we'll run all of these next together. And then what we'll do is we just spread them out. So this one may actually go here. And this one is going to run here. And then this pipe will run over to here. So there we go. And then we can run this down here. We'll take all of our data sticks out, put them in our hatches at the back. We can change this out now for our reception hatch, and then plug it in. It seems to be making the research station now, which is weird because this doesn't have any power. But it seems to be providing data, so who cares? We'll see if I actually need to plug that in a sec. And the research station is now completed, so let's build that as well. I'm not going to bother time-lapsing this because I'm going to make so many mistakes. So here you are before, and here it is, almost ready to be finished. So we have 2 things missing now. We have the object holder that we need to procure, and we need a computational input hatch. So let's see if we can craft the object holder. Oh my gosh, why is that so expensive? That's right, we actually need 2 ZPM input buses for this. So we need to scan one of them. 2 minutes of waiting. And we can just request the object holder while we wait for that to scan. And here's where we order some more components. So we need a computational data reception hatch. I think we're going to need 2 of these eventually, but just one will suffice to start with. And then we're going to need a data transmission hatch as well. And that's going to be for the HPCA eventually. But for now, more bloody waiting. Okay, so all the computer parts have actually been put together now, except for the centers of these HPCAs. So as you can see, we do get a GUI to show us... Oh, and I'm just realizing how we're going to have to run these cables. That's a later problem. For now, we can have 9 HPCA components in there. And for the Fusion Reactor Mark II, we need 16 computer working units. It also takes UV circuits, which also need 16 computer working units. So we need to look through our HPCAs, and especially the components, and find out how we can provide 16 computer working units and cool them at the same time. It would be easy to make the advanced component, but that takes UV circuits. So what we're going to do is we have to use the regular HPCA component, which provides 4 computer working units with 2 cooling. And active coolers provide 2 cooling, but take your PCB coolant. So make sure you have a robust setup of that. But we need 4 regular computation components and 4 active coolers. And then we can just get 1 empty component to put in the middle, because you do need to fill this entirely. So we'll get 4 active coolers. We will get 4 of the regular components. And then we'll get 1 empty HPCA component. And now we get to wait a while. All of this has been about waiting. And in that time, we have set up the second assembly line, which is totally unusable until we get the network switch. And the network switch requires 32 computer working units. So we need to actually have the advanced components, which requires UV. And this also requires titanium. And titanium is the Fusion Reactor Mark II. But we're almost here. We're almost at the Fusion Reactor Mark II. Alright, we have our components, and the fun part about them is that we can just assemble them any way we want, but obviously, we're going to do it like that. I'm going to have to figure this orientation stuff out again, so I'll be back when I have that working. Okay, we got it working, and I have no idea if it's making a horrible noise, so how about I turn my sound back on and see? No, it doesn't. Oh, that's nice. Back in the other version, it was a horrible noise, and now it's not. So that means that our research station now is receiving 16 computer working units via this optic cable. into its reception hatch. It also is receiving power as well, so that means we can research the UV circuit and the fusion reactor. And so I've actually prepared in advance a few data orbs, and we're going to need to take one of our fusion reactor Mark 1s and research it into a Mark 2, which hurts given we only could have made 2 because of the plutonium. And the UV circuit, we just need to research a ZPM circuit. So let's just grab a crystal ZPM circuit. We'll grab our fusion reactor. Ouch. And now we can research them. So let's do the crystal processor. Give it a data orb. Okay, there's the awful noise here. So yep, there's the noise that it makes. Really great, and that's not counting up in seconds anymore. That's weird. Oh well, we're researching now. That's all that matters. And so now we have the data orb for the UV circuit, and let's get the fusion reactor Mark II. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, plutonium. And I really hate sacrificing these buildings to do this, but I have to. So we now actually have our UV circuits, which has unlocked the first quest of the UV quest page. It also finally allows us to make this ultimate parallel hatch, which according to my calculations in my spreadsheet, will allow us to actually upgrade ore processing. And right now, ore processing is broken. And that's because I have filled up every single drive. And these are 256k ME item storages. Look how many there are. And I'll be honest, I think the reason why is because some of the processes just aren't able to go through because of the way we've set it up. So as some of you might remember, I do set up the ore processing subnets as such. I have a storage bus with the product into an interface into the drives. But as you can see right now, none of these can actually be processed because the output buses are full because there's no space on the network. But we also have things in the network that should have been processed. Things like 32,000 Eurovarite should have been sent through the centrifuge. But somewhere in here, it's actually stored as items not in the storage bus. And because we're using interfaces to pull out the items, I'm starting to think we don't need the storage bus here. If we took out this quartz fiber, then anything in the network would immediately be pulled into the storage. Oh, and it seems that the centrifuge is actually full because it has too much stuff in it. Well, we do have to upgrade the storage anyway. So how about we look at upgrading our storage drives? So we're currently up to 256k. But it looks like just with some IV circuits, we can make 1024s. It's the wrong IV circuit. So we can put in the proper IV circuit and get 256k storage drives. Sorry, 1024k storage drives. Then with an LUV circuit, we can get a 4096. And with a ZPM circuit, we can get 16,384,000. And then finally, because why not, let's use a UV circuit to get the 65,536k drive. And let's just get some acceleration cards before we even start to request some crazy stuff like this. So let's find where our components are. Let's actually take them out of random ones and put them into a set of concentrated ones. There we are. I think that's all of them. So now let's put them in this one. So 1k, 4k, 16, 64, 256, 1024, 496, 16384, and 65536. And then acceleration cards. Need to grab some more. Then around the back, it's this one. So now, let's be really dumb. How many can we request? Oops. Can't request that. Let's try and request one. Are our CPUs not big enough? Oh my gosh, our crafting CPUs aren't big enough to request it. Okay, we have 8 crafting CPUs. Can we request 8 1024s? Sure. And let's request 8 crafting units, and we'll just slap those together when we're ready. But hopefully we see these molecular assemblers working extremely quick. But let's stay on top of it. We have our fusion reactor Mark II. We'll put the data orb away, and let's check the recipe. Let's see how difficult this is going to be to make. So we need 4 UV circuits, Not too challenging. Fusion coil, double nequadria, double europium, 32 of those wires, remove the data orb. Okay, that's not horrible. It does get worse though. So we need to be able to make small nequada fluid pipes and europium plates. And we need 4 LUV circuits. I can make 2X wire, but I can't make 1X wire. Okay, that explains it. So now we'll be able to make 1X wire of the ZPM superconductor. Small nequada fluid pipes. Let's get europium plates. And double europium plates. Nope, that's the wrong recipe. We can get our nequadria double plate. And now let's look at fusion casing Mark IIs. So, wow, that is expensive. Alright, well, we can make all of that once we put these recipes in. And let's take a look at what the fusion reactor Mark II needs. So I'm pretty sure it'll be the same. Okay, it is. So, let's take our recipe for the fusion reactor Mark I, and we'll just duplicate it. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to change the recipes out. So fusion casing Mark II instead of Mark I, we need 48 of those. Fusion glass is the same. We're going to need 16 ZPM energy hatches instead this time. We're also going to need 4 fusion coil blocks instead of the superconducting blocks. And we're going to need the computer as well. And we can keep those the same. And now we're going to have 2 bits that say fusion reactor Mark I. So maybe I can rename a piece of paper to fusion reactor Mark II. But for now, that's fine. Let's set the recipes and see if we can request the entire damn thing. Okay, so I should have got that right. So let's look at the fusion reactor. Oh, yeah, okay, right. That's obviously not going to work properly, is it? Yeah, I don't know why I thought that that was going to work. Okay, so let's get a piece of paper and hope that the game doesn't crash when I open up the anvil. Oh, I'm worried. Good. We can now take our ZPM, or fusion reactor Mark II, and just change the output to fusion reactor Mark II. Alright, that should officially do it. No, still. What am I missing now? All CPUs are in... What? It's bigger. It's a bigger craft than what our machines can handle. That's fine. We're about to absolutely explode our ability to craft. Is there anything crafting in here? Yes, there is. Can't do that one. This one. Okay. So this 16K can be replaced with a 1024. Make sure this one as well. There we go. You just don't want to end up voiding the craft. That's why you have to check. But now let's get this fusion reactor Mark II going. That is going to take so long, but because we've set the recipe for the entire computer, all we have to do is wait for this one craft to be done, and we have everything for it. So how about I do the waiting, and you get to see me in just a second with the fusion reactor.
8 hours later.
Very exciting times indeed. We now have our fusion reactor Mark II. And I'm so excited, in fact, let's just request a second one. Because eventually, we're going to need 3 of them. Maybe we can request 2? Or we can request 2. Well, that's going to take years. My gosh, it uses 272 nether stars. Wow. Let's do it anyway. Really? Of course. How about now? There we go. All right, we've just put in 2 fusion reactor Mark IIs so we can just finish our Mark IIs. So while that's crafting, let's actually build this fusion reactor Mark II. Yeah, I might have gone a little bit overboard here. So each of these fusion reactors is passiving a single process. We're making tritanium, americium, darmstadtium, geranium, lutetium, and europium. And we're obviously solidifying these into ingots where we can, otherwise we are storing them in tanks. And just these 6 multi-blocks here represents a significant investment in resources. But it's not like we don't have the resources to spend. I'm finally starting to work my brain out of the old Gregtech mentality and into the new one. It's all about scale. And scale we will. So let's just finish off these HPCAs and we can call the episode there. So that's just going to take 4 bridging connects. It's going to take 8 of these advanced computers. We're missing ZPM field generators. I feel like I'm actually losing my mind right now. I cannot think of how this is going to work. So we need 2 of these, which can provide 32 working units and 8 cooling. And then we need 4 coolers per, and that gives us 6 components. Yeah, okay, we'll just do 6 each. So we need 2 plus 6 times 3. How's that? There we are. Which is 20. Yes, it is. Let's also get a recipe for this ZPM field generator. Seems that we can actually make everything. It requires 2 ZPM circuits, and we also need to research it. So let's request an LUV field generator. And we have our data orbs. And once we have all of that, we can then finish these off. And finally, after copious amounts of waiting, we have our fully upgraded HPCAs. It is useful to note that we do have an extra HPCA computation component just down here, and that's just as a safety guard because I know that the most amount of computer working units we need is for the ultimate battery, which we could make if we really wanted to, but just to be safe, we wanted to just go over. And so that brings us nice and neatly to a good wrap-up point. We have definitely gone overboard this week with 4 HPCAs and 4 new fusion reactors. Next episode, we might even get to start using some of these new fancy ingots, but you never know. There's so much to do and so much to see. So if you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, you know what to do. You should subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your grandmother. I'm sure she'd love to watch it, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.